Years of hard living brought the gun around. He took aim, and then realized he was preparing to shoot his own reflection in a large, ornate bullseye mirror hanging on the opposite wall. For a moment, Andreas stood still, fascinated by his distorted image in the mirror. His face was larger in the center, his shoulders and arms small. Slowly, deliberately, he turned his hand so the gun aimed at his head. How easy it would be to pull the trigger. He stood, riveted by the sight, by the temptation. At last, he understood his father. Death would be freeing. No more struggles to reclaim a heritage Andres knew was hopelessly lost, though he feared it had never been his to begin with. No more carrying the weight of his own mistakes, his many failures, or the pain of living without love. He could curse Gillian for introducing him to what the word meant and then leaving him to return to her husband. If he was going to take his own life, he'd do it right. He'd blow off this face of his, which was both blessing and curse. Andres might have been born of the noble house of the Remigio, but he had betrayed that royal lineage more times than he cared to remember. He was unworthy, a failure. If he had any honor at all, he'd pull this trigger, just as his father had. He wasn't enough. He never would be enough. "No! Stop! It's a sin!" Before he could turn, could comment, he was tackled to the ground by a red-headed force of nature. She'd caught him off guard and had easily toppled all 6'1" of him. Dazed, Andreas looked up to find a young woman with an impossible mop of carroty-colored hair frowning down at him. She'd fallen on top of him in her effort to knock him over, and she'd now pushed herself up, her hands resting on his chest. "You would make a terrible mess in the room if you shot yourself," she said earnestly, "as well as bring a halt to the party." Andreas still had the pistol in his hand. He lifted it for her to see that the hammer wasn't cocked. "I wasn't doing what you imagine." She tilted her head, as if his accented English had surprised her, as if discovering the gun uncocked surprised her. "What you saw is not what you think." Actually, he was embarrassed to have been caught, nor did he want rumors circulating that he was suicidal. That was all he needed. Carla would believe it was over her, and he'd never be rid of her. "The pistol is not loaded." "It's not what?" A frown formed between her brows. "Why would you point a not-loaded pistol to your head?" "Not because I was attempting to take my life," Andres said, raising himself to rest on his elbows and take a better look at his would-be savior, and finding himself pleasantly surprised. He'd not met her before. She was strikingly different from the ranks of willowy blondes and curvy brunettes of his acquaintance. She even had freckles on her nose. He'd not seen one freckle in any upper-class English drawing room. He'd thought they'd been forbidden, banned completely with creams and hats and whatever artifices could be designed, and yet here they were. Those freckles made her seem not less refined, but more vivid, more alive. She didn't move. She sat on him, contemplating him with an expression that reminded him of a small, serious owl. "You were considering it," she decided. "And considering it is a sin as well." The boredom, the disinterest that had laced itself tightly around his life of late gave way. She was such an English lamb. They always felt they knew everything, and she was so certain she'd saved him. "Not all is what it seems," he answered. "For example, if someone were to walk in at this moment, what would they think was happening between us?" Her eyes narrowed. They were blue eyes, common with red hair but devilishly attractive. "If you wish to point out how compromising this position is, say so. I acted as I did because I thought you needed help." "Oh, I could use some help," Andres assured her, as lust slammed into him with a force he'd not anticipated. He sat up, wanting to both gather her in his arms and hide the fact of his arousal. For a second, they were almost nose to nose, heat to heat. She'd felt him, knew he was hard. He saw it in those disconcerting